Welcome back to Read Poems Every Day. We're back with Donika Kelly's What is the Measure to think just a little bit about the next step in my process of reading poems, and that's describing form and figures. The form of the poem doesn't necessarily follow any kind of convention like the sonnet per se, at least that I was able to find. But where I think of the form of the poem less as a matter of conforming to a certain kind of tradition of a subgenre or subset of poems, and instead I think of part and whole um, part and whole relationships, and I think of how repetition and anaphora uh, organize organize these parts. So you have let me turn this into a bullet. I don't know why I'm capitalizing these. Part and whole relationships. I think largely the shape and arrangement of the poem is can be thought of according to part and whole and according to repetition and anaphora that sort of sections off the different places, the different parts of it. So you have, for instance, for instance, which I brought up before in other sections, and I submit, and never mind, all of which we can see how these the repetition of these line beginnings do kind of help us section off the poem. I'll also say that the form seems to be connected to what the first line calls a catalog. Catalog as form, but also as figure for what the poem is up to. We could think of that as descriptive list, as inventory or list, catalog. That's sort of what I'm thinking about there. But then also these repeated anaphoric line beginnings. For instance, I submit. Take on how can we put that? Also a kind of legal or academic argumentative pose or posture, the giving of examples, the ritual of presenting a case or evidence, right? And so think about the situations in which you would say um, I submit, but then again maybe I submit could mean I give up, right? After all, the poem does begin with the confession that the speaker's cataloging what cannot be captured. I don't know. Maybe those phrases work and cut in two different ways at the same time. When thinking about part and whole relationships or part to part, you could also think about how the poem um, moves from mountain to field to you. Uh, the you section reconfigures how we go back and read the first, I don't know, 2/3 of the poem. Like it gives it a completely different frame to think through. And so those are some reflections on the form of the poem. Maybe I think there's also a way in which the catalog the catalog list becomes a form or a setup for being a kind of love poem, or a song of praise, admiration, adoration. Okay, so I think that's where we're at there. Um, Probably, as with many of the poems in Kelly's most recent collection, the primary figurations seem to be between the body of the speaker or beloved and natural spaces, natural details, or individual um, catalogable features become aligned with the features of a body, and thus sort of eroticize. So natural landscapes, and this isn't that unusual, become a mechanism for thinking about the relationship between bodies and the sort of pleasurable, loving expression of relationships or contacts between bodies. Hmm. There's also the title may be related to cataloging, capturing, describing, but also to song. I'm thinking here of measure. So measure as in standard, but also a segment or section of song, music. Hmm. Maybe other connotations that I'm not catching there too. Right, so that's just a quick overview. I think in my next video, I'm going to keep this one short because I've done some kind of longer ones lately. I'm going to post that, and we'll come back hopefully in a video tomorrow to finish up my reflections. Um, at least finish up for now my reflections and my notes on this fantastic poem by a fantastic poet. All right. Thanks for thinking a bit about form and figure with me today, and I look forward to wrapping up again, temporarily, provisionally, some of my thoughts and notes on this poem later on.